All right, so it's been a little bit since we read our new read aloud, the insignificant events in the life of a cactus. But I just wanted to remind you of a few things before we move on to chapter 5. So, our main character is Avon. She was born without arms. She was adopted by her family, and her parents, never really gave her a chance to have excuses for not doing things. They always just said, well, figure it out. And so she's pretty capable at this point. Her family just moved to Arizona to a dude ranch, kind of like an amusement park. And her father is like the head of it now. And so she's starting at a new school and she just had her first day. Um, and not the easiest day. At her old school, her friends had known her whole life. And so they weren't shocked anymore by the fact that she didn't have arms and ate with her feet and did everything essentially with her feet and all of that. And all of these new kids obviously can't stop staring. So I think this book is always good to think about like how we should act when we are curious about someone, but also, thinking empathetically about them and how it might make them feel to be stared at, um, and not treated like a normal person. So that's one of the great things about this book, I think, that we can really learn from. But I'm going to continue on from here. So, chapter 5. I'm sure a lot of people think it would be cool to live inside a theme park. And if that theme park was Disney World, I'm sure they would be right. Though I've never been there, I imagine living in Stagecoach Pass is probably not a whole lot like living in Disney World. It's more like living in Disney Shantytown. We'd moved into the small apartment over the Stagecoach Pass Saloon and Steakhouse because running a theme park is apparently a 24-hour-a-day job. You never know when an ancient toilet might explode, hopefully not with someone on it, or a kid might get bitten by a crazed bunny. Because the apartment is located right on top of the steakhouse, I can hear the noisy player piano in the bar every night as I fall asleep. The only main course options on the menu at the steakhouse are steak and a burger, both served with cowboy beans, cornbread, and coleslaw. For the adventurous, there is fried rattlesnake or Rocky Mountain oysters for appetizers. I tried the fried rattlesnake on my first day here, and I wasn't all that impressed. It pretty much just tasted like little fried pieces of fried stuff. I didn't much care to try the Rocky Mountain oysters, though. I've had this long standing rule of not eating private parts, and it served me well so far. The saloon and steakhouse is the first wooden building you see when you enter Stagecoach Pass, after parking in the giant dirt lot, which is only a quarter full on the busiest days. Next to the steakhouse is a shooting gallery where the fake guns have such poor aim that no one can hit the bullseye attached to the plastic cactuses, wild eyed cowboy cutouts, and stuffed, patchy haired bobcats. Across from the shooting gallery is a tiny museum and the main souvenir shop, which sells things like drink coasters and shot glasses with cactuses on them, lollipops with scorpions inside them. Yeah, like anyone would eat that. And postcards of the Grand Canyon. I guess so people can pretend they visited the Grand Canyon instead of Stagecoach Pass. Not that I blame them. The main dirt road, surprisingly called Main Street, that runs through Stagecoach Pass winds a corner after the shooting gallery, and there stands a theater that shows old black and white westerns all day long. Maybe like one person is always sitting in there, probably just to soak up the air conditioning. Next to the movie theater is the soda shop that sells old fashioned candy and ice cream. It's run by a white haired guy named Henry, who's worked there since Stagecoach Pass opened, and who never gets anyone's order right. Ask for a single strawberry cone, and he gives you a triple chocolate. He's like 100 years old and completely senile, but he always remembers my name for some reason. I guess I'm pretty memorable. Must be the red hair. I want you to notice in this book her sense of humor. It's very sarcastic. Obviously, it's not her red hair that makes her memorable. It's the fact that she doesn't have arms. So she's being sarcastic there. If you walk further down the road, you'll find a jail. People can pay $10 to have someone arrested for reasons like eating their boogers and having bad breath. I already had Dad arrested for chronic farting, and I didn't have to pay for it either because my parents run the place. VIP here. I'm planning on having Mom arrested for being a yellow sissy britches. Across from the soda shop is a petting zoo with 3 goats, 2 sheep, 4 rabbits, 2 chickens, and Spaghetti, an extremely old mutant llama with a giant tumor growing out of his head. The lady who runs the petting zoo, Denise, told my parents the tumor can't be removed because he's too old and any surgery would kill him. Poor Spaghetti. The kids are scared of him and prefer to pet the other animals. But Spaghetti and I have a special connection. Toward the back of Stagecoach Pass is the gold mine, run by a cranky old man named Bob, who clearly hates children. When they ask him if the gold is real, he's supposed to tell them, "It's real Stagecoach Pass gold," with a cheesy southern accent. Instead, he usually says in a mean-sounding Philadelphia accent, "It's real gold, spray-painted rocks, genius," or, "If it was real, do you think I'd be here letting you dig it up?" Or simply, "Shut your pie hole." You can have your palm read by Madame Myrtle, the park's psychic. She had a hard time figuring out my future, though. I asked her to read the bottom of my foot, but all she told me was that I had a lot of calluses and she liked my blue sparkly nail polish. Kids have the choice to ride either a 1,000-year-old donkey named Billy or a washed-up circus camel named Fred on the dirt trail that winds through the 10-acre piece of desert that sits behind Stagecoach Pass. The rest of Main Street is littered with empty buildings and storefronts that used to house things like a photography studio for taking old-fashioned portraits and a mechanical bull ride you could pay $5 to try. The mechanical bull still sits in the room, broken down and looking forlorn. I once walked through Stagecoach Pass and counted all the empty buildings. There are 17, more than the buildings in operation. When Stagecoach Pass opened 60 years ago, it was probably quite the tourist attraction, sitting way out in the middle of the desert. The city has caught up to it, though, and besides the patch of desert that sits behind it, and the tiny border of desert that runs around it, it is completely surrounded by buildings and houses, a strange little time capsule in the middle of a big city. That first day after school, I walked into the soda shop, stomping my dusty purple flats, all the way in to try to bring them back to their bright color. "Is there a marching band in here?" Henry called. "No," I frowned. "My shoes are all dirty." "That's the desert for you," Henry said. "What can I get you, little Avon?" "Just a single scoop of mint chip in a bowl, please." While I waited, I looked at the framed pictures of tarantulas lining one wall of the soda shop. "Someone must have really liked tarantulas to put all these pictures up," I said to Henry as he scooped my ice cream. He laughed. "Of course. You do, Avon." "I don't know anything about tarantulas." Henry chuckled and waved a hand at me, like I was acting silly. "No, really. I've never seen a tarantula before in my life," I said. He just smiled and shook his head. "You can't fool me, Avon." He handed me my ice cream, a double scoop of vanilla. Oh well. I carefully picked the paper bowl up between my chin and shoulder. I walked out of the soda shop and sat in a rocking chair on the front porch to eat my vanilla, which I don't even like. I dreaded going home and being subjected to more of the interrogation about my day Mom had started in the car. There simply wasn't anything to tell. After a few bites, I threw my ice cream in the trash. I had already explored most of the park, so I decided to make my way around the back of the soda shop and see what was behind the buildings. I found a narrow dirt, of course, trail that wound through the small strip of desert that surrounded Stagecoach Pass. I followed it until I came to a small building, more like a shack. It was at the very edge of the property, which was bordered with a chain-link fence. Behind the fence, I could see the back of the large grocery store Mom and I had already visited. I walked around the shack, noting the 7 "Do Not Enter" signs nailed to the outside. The old wooden doors had been padlocked, probably a very long time ago, because the metal handle on one had completely rotted off the wood, and the lock was still hanging with it on the other handle. I tried pushing on the handle with my side, but the door was so stiff I could barely move it. I needed someone's hands to pull it open. I peeked in one of the windows. Through the film of dirt, I could vaguely make out stacks of boxes and what looked like old props. Why on earth would someone padlock the doors and put 7 do not enter signs on this building filled with nothing but junk? I had to get in there. Why is your whole lunch in here? Mom asked as she rummaged through my school bag. She narrowed her eyes at me, gripping the bag like it was evidence in a murder trial. Didn't you eat anything? Yeah, I had ice cream over in the soda shop. I opened the fridge with my chin and shoulder, pulling on the special strap Dad had installed, opened the produce drawer with my foot, and lifted out a small bag of carrots. I could feel Mom's frown on my back. You're going to have to eat in front of the other kids at some point, Avon. I know, I just wasn't hungry today. Are you embarrassed, honey? She asked. I could hear the sadness in her voice. It was my first day, Mom. I just felt nervous, so I didn't have any appetite. Well, I hope that's all it was, she said, because you have nothing to feel embarrassed about. I know. I shut the fridge and turned around. You want to hear something weird? Always. Henry in the soda shop kept telling me I love tarantulas. Well, do you? She asked. I laughed. I don't know. Why would he tell me that? He has dementia, sweetheart. He doesn't think clearly anymore. Who knows what might have been going on in his mind when he said that? He just really seemed to think I was someone who would like tarantulas, I guess. He also gave me vanilla today. Yuck. Mom sighed. I know. Dad and I don't have the heart to replace him, though. He's worked here for 60 years. How can we do that? No, that would be awful, I agreed. I can learn to like vanilla. Mom smiled at me. Excuse me. Oh, I almost forgot, she said. I have a surprise for you. I followed her down the short hallway to my room, carrying my bag of baby carrots between my chin and shoulder. The apartment had only 2 little bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a living area, and a kitchen, a lot smaller than our house in Kansas. Ta-da! She announced as we entered my tiny room. Wow, I said, sitting down in front of the new computer she had set up at my desk. Dad and I thought you could use a new one, and we found a keyboard with extra large keys for preschoolers. Might be easier to use than our old keyboard. I slipped my feet out of my flats and tapped my toes on the keys. Yeah, I think this will work great. Thanks, Mom. I hit the power button with my toes and waited for it to start up. One more thing, Mom said. She told me an address to type. Your own blog, she cried. I stared at the page. Cool. Dad set it up for you. We know you love to read Emily and Brittany's blog, so we thought you should have one too. Might be a good way for them to keep up on everything that's going on with you here. What should I blog about? What do Emily and Brittany blog about? Brittany mostly blogs about fantasy books, and Emily is trying to be a restaurant critic. Mom smiled. Why don't you blog about soccer? That reminds me. Did you find out when tryouts are? Not until spring, unfortunately. I kind of hoped they would have soccer in the fall. That stinks, Mom said. Well, you and Dad will just have to keep practicing together until then. Dad has already set up a new goal in the rodeo arena, and we had gone there together early one morning before the sun could cook us. Despite the ball getting all dusty while we played, it had been kind of fun. Yeah, I said, yeah, we will. Dad had enrolled me in soccer camp when I was in 2nd grade. Prior to that, our attempts at several dad activities had mostly ended in failure, or worse, disaster. The time he tried to teach me how to fish immediately comes to mind. Think fishing hooks in toes and ears and everywhere else except a fish's mouth. Then there's the time he took me camping. The whole trip stunk. No showers, no soft mattress, smelly campfire, no TV. I know you were thinking I was going to say it stunk for some reason that had to do with me not having arms. Nope, it stunk because I hate camping. When Dad decided he just had to teach me a sport or he would die from never having any sort of bonding activity with me, beyond watching old episodes of The Lone Ranger and eating chili together, soccer was the obvious choice. I have had nightmares about trying out for other sports at school. Usually they involve people throwing various balls at me. Footballs, baseballs, basketballs, take your pick. And those balls hitting me in the head or face while everyone in school watches. Not pretty. Soccer, though, that's a sport I can manage. All right, I'm going to stop there, and we'll read some more later this week.